Number 10 was tricked into making out with Ra's al Ghul. In the Batman Beyond series, Ra's ends up having to face mortality and jump ship when it comes to his body when it becomes so broken that the Lazarus pits can no longer heal him. He decides to take Talia's body for his own. Not content with being in the body of his daughter, a woman, he comes up with a plot to get Bruce's old body, which he then plans to make young again using the Lazarus pits. This plan involves Ra's posing as Talia in order to seduce an elderly Bruce Wayne, making him believe that Talia has found the secret to youth and wants to share it with Bruce so they can be together. Oh, how sweet. This plan also ends up involving Ra's and Talia's body though making out with Bruce, which was not something that Bruce signed up for, especially when he finds out, wait a minute, so when I was kissing Talia, I was kissing her dad? Ew. What? What? So crazy. Number 9. Losing his fortune. While we haven't explored the full ramifications of this blow yet, it's likely going to end up being a doozy. Everything that Batman has become was all because of his fortune, and over the years in Tynion's run, he's also become more and more reliable on his utility belt and his fancy gadgets. Batman might just be a man, but his billions have backed him up time and time again, acting as a stand-in often for his lack of superpowers. So what happens when Batman loses all that? In Joker War, Batman was targeted by the Joker and his new number 1, Punchline. He lost his money and for a while his sanity thanks to Punchline's specially formulated Joker venom. TM. This made it hard for Batman to regain control of Gotham, but not impossible. In the end, he realized he needed help and reached out to the Bat family, who helped him regain the city. After Joker was defeated, Bruce decided to let Lucius Fox keep the money as a consolation and a reward for all the years of hard work, as well as, some payment for his time being tortured at the hands of Punchline and the Joker, which was pretty terrible. Honestly, Lucius, you deserve that money. Lucius accepted this offer but told Bruce he wanted no more part of helping him with Batman. Lucius Fox was opting out of that crazy world, so if Bruce wanted to continue, he was on his own. No millions and none of Fox's fancy tech. It'll be interesting to see how much this sets Batman back and how he fights to overcome this challenge. Before we move on, just a quick reminder to click that like and smash that subscribe if you haven't already. Go on, do it, and let me welcome you to the top 10 nerd family! Welcome, 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 confetti balloons. Number 8. Bane breaks Batman. This is a pretty terrible one, and yet it's not even the worst point, especially considering Batman did eventually heal and return from this. In Nightfall, we see Batman faced with multiple villains in one night. He's run down and tired, which is when Bane strikes, attempting to take Gotham from the Bat. In an iconic and devastatingly memorable moment, Bane breaks Batman's back, ultimately destroying him. Fortunately, Bruce would recover and return as Batman, but he would need someone to take over for a time. That someone ended up being Azrael Jean-Paul Valley, and passing that mantle on would also lead to some other problems later on for Bats. Number 7. Assaulted by Talia al Ghul. Talia al Ghul may love Batman, but she definitely has a messed up way of showing it. When Damian was conceived, it was not really out of love. Talia actually assaulted Bruce, drugging him and sleeping with him in order to get the child she so desired. All in all, it's really messed up. What's even more strange is it seems like the story of Damian's existence could have been inspired by Son of the Demon, where Talia and Bruce consummate their marriage consensually and Talia reveals she is with child. She later fakes a miscarriage to keep Batman focused on fighting the bad guys and avoid distracting him, but in truth has the child in secret and gives it up for adoption, realizing she and Batman can never truly be together. This story, while still messed up and awful considering Bruce, never knows of his son's fate and it's kept a secret, is still less disturbing than the one we got for Damian Wayne. Drugging and assaulting someone is very much not okay. No, no, no. Don't do it. It's terrible. Number 6. Death of his fiancée. For those who aren't aware, there was a time that Batman was engaged. In fact, there have been multiple occasions where Batman was engaged and married. For our purposes here though, I'm talking about when Bruce Wayne became engaged to his old flame, Silver St. Cloud. Silver has been a Gotham socialite who had a passionate romance that initially ended when Silver learned of the fact that Bruce Wayne was actually Batman. She loved Bruce but couldn't stand the thought of losing losing him. Years later, she returned to Gotham and ended up falling back in love with both Bruce Wayne and Batman, breaking off her current engagement to a US senator. Her and Bruce were engaged, and he was even thinking of retiring from the Batman mantle to pursue a normal life with Silver and settle down with her. However, these dreams were cut short when Silver was killed by Automatopoeia, who was posing as Batman's new ally at the time, Baphomet, a man that Batman trusted so much that he even revealed his secret identity to him and welcomed him into the Batcave. Big mistake, Bruce. No wonder Batman has trust issues, jeez. Number 5. Failed Barbara Gordon. One of the hardest failings for Batman was when Barbara Gordon and her father, Commissioner Gordon, were successfully targeted by the Joker. Caught unawares, Babs found herself shot through the spine and paralyzed as a result of the attack. She was assaulted and tormented by the Joker, who took pictures of her in pain and undressed for the purpose of making her father insane. This all happened in Killing Joke, and though not all of the events of that story are canon, Babs' pain and becoming paralyzed were made canon. Batman has always felt awful for what happened to Barbara, has never really blamed her, and if anything, himself feels more guilty for the fact that he wasn't able to protect her.
At 10, Ambush Bug. Ambush Bug is just an all-around terrible character, okay? His real name is supposedly Erwin Schwab, but he has mental problems that prevent him from truly understanding the reality around him, so even his true identity might be no more than a delusion on his part. His origin is also disputed, although the most commonly accepted origin is that Brum-El of the planet Schwab sent his clothes from his supposedly doomed planet, hoping that his wardrobe would survive, only to have it intercepted by a giant radioactive space spider. In the resulting crash, only 2 articles of clothing survived, one being the ambush bug suit, which was subsequently found by Irwin. His powers include the ability to teleport at will, which is never explained, and the uncanny ability to annoy everyone around him, even more than me talking about the Hulk on this channel. This guy also started out as a supervillain, and the original pitch, according to the creator, Keith Griffin, the same man who created Lobo and Blue Beetle, was, quote, Bugs Bunny as a villain. And I think that says it all.
Number 9. Tasmanian Devil. The Hulk. Wolfsbane. Beast Boy. Characters that change into beasts are awesome, depending what they turn into. So when Hugh Dawkins turns into a were-Tasmanian devil, it's just not what anyone was looking for. While it may seem super fitting for the Australian to turn into a marsupial, and while he may look somewhat cool, I don't know. For some reason, he has a giant T naturally appearing on his chest when he transforms, just to make sure you know that he is not a wolf, but specifically a Tasmanian devil, because if he was a wolf, then he'd just be another werewolf character, and he's way cooler than that. He's a were-Tasmanian devil, and that's cool, Mom!
Oh, hold on, before we go on with the video, okay? You gotta come over to the new channel, my new channel, Minecraft Nightmare, okay? Look, scary Minecraft all the time. I know it sounds weird, but trust me, it's fun, okay? So come do it. Minecraft Nightmare. Link is in the description, I hope. And at 8, Nort. Some of us love an animal-themed superhero. Others love an animal-human hybrid superhero. However, those who find themselves to be fans of Squirrel Girl might not know about what is probably one of the worst DC equivalents, Nort, with a G. Originally a member of the Green Lantern Corps, which doesn't really mean much since there is literally a Green Lantern that is just a planet, Nort eventually became a member of the Justice League Antarctica, which by name alone indicates how meaningless it is in the overall JL hierarchy. And while his character may have been made as a joke, being stupid and incompetent by trade, it is still surprising just how bad he truly is. I mean, he's a red dog human, for God's sakes. Like, how do you come up with this design? Who thought that this would be a good idea?
Number 7. Faith. When the original Justice League was teleported thousands of years into the past, a new Justice League was formed, and Faith was one of those premier members. Only she was more like the member. See, the problem with Faith was that she solved pretty much any problem. She would almost always show up with some new power that was exactly what the League needed at the time. When she was part of a Black Ops team before the Justice League, she was literally nicknamed the Fat Lady. She ain't fat. It was a reference to the saying, "It ain't over till the fat lady sings," because literally whenever she showed up, the fight was over. So then what's the point of having a team at all? Fans found her boring, and she was basically just a plot device. A waste of a powerful character, if you ask me.
And at 6, Blue Jay. Jay Abrams, known as the crime fighter Blue Jay, first appeared in Justice League of America number 87 in February of 1971, and was made as an homage to the Marvel character of Yellow Jacket. However, while Yellow Jacket had an explanation for his powers, Blue Jay didn't. He could shrink to 7 inches tall for reasons, and he could grow wings for more reasons. Seriously though, these reasons are never explained. And having no explanation is worse than the yellow sun giving him power. Having no explanation is worse than nanotech, for God's sake. Having no explanation is worse than Catman from Fairly Odd Parents. Blue Jay is just Hawkman with a stupid mystery, and that's not something I tend to enjoy, okay? It's freaking ridiculous. The lack of explanation as to how this man has the powers he does and why is, ironically enough, the reason he's on the list.
Number 5. Kongorilla. You remember the Tasmanian Devil? I said that heroes who turn into beasts are cool. William Glenn Morgan is actually cool. He can transfer his mind to a gorilla. He can also change size and has a healing factor. So what's the problem? For starters, he's called Kongorilla. Get it because he's a gorilla and he's from the Congo? Secondly, Congo Bill, yes that was his nickname, was part of a horrible Justice League run by James Robinson. Pile on top of that the fact that in said Justice League run, he was highly underutilized and was completely overshadowed by better named characters, and you've got a short-lived Justice League member who you ain't gonna find on pretty much anyone's favorite list.
In at 4, Godiva. Dora Lee is the British superhero Godiva and a member of the Justice League International, and her power? Prehensile hair. Sometimes called psychokinetic hair, prehensile hair is a term used to describe the ability of some characters to move their hair in impossible ways, kind of like a tail. Not only can the character move their hair, but they can also use it to wrap up opponents, knock out armored thugs, and contend with larger enemies. But you know what? That isn't even enough for me to consider her a decent Justice League International member, okay? Because like, what? Basically, this is Rapunzel so blasted out that she whips her hair back and forth like Willow Smith and thinks that she's controlling her hair with her mind. Her power reminds me of how like every single time you're trying to cuddle up with a girl, but like no matter what, you always have hair in your face and it's never comfortable because there's at least one strand of hair is always comfortably on your face, but you're not comfortable. The hair is comfortable, but you're not.
Number 10. He became the fattest man on Earth. This bizarre storyline is from 1960, and in it, the evil Gorilla Grodd has transferred his consciousness into human form to confront the Flash. He shoots Flash with a radiation gun that causes his body to absorb excess moisture from the air, making Barry swell up like a water balloon to an alarming and uncomfortable looking size. Not only that, Grodd also erases his memories and sells him to a heartless sideshow owner who puts Barry on display and charges people to come and see the fattest man alive. I can only imagine how cringy it would be to try and read this story today and take it seriously. We get to see a deeply depressed Barry, exploited, embarrassed, and dejected, with little kids pointing and laughing at him. Thankfully, he does eventually recover his memory and his figure. Hey guys, if you like these videos and you want to see more, be sure to take a second and hit that like button. Number 9. His face was disfigured. Not everything on this list is cosmetic, but we'll get into the more emotional suffering later. For now, let's talk about the time Big Sir punched the Flash's lights out. Big Sir is one of the Flash's lesser known villains, but he has some super strength and lands a clean, super powered blow right in Barry's face, and the signature speedster passes out in the bushes at the park. 2 kids happen across his body and recoil in horror when they take a peek under his mask. His face is so smashed up it's barely even recognizable. His teeth are chipped, his eyes swollen shut, it's brutal. Seriously hurt, he heads to Gorilla City and gets patched up by his friend Solivar, leader of the super intelligent gorilla race. They heal him up and rebuild his face differently to help keep his identity secret. Luckily, they go with the usual 2 eyes, 1 nose, regular looking face. In the future, advanced surgery helps Flash eventually return to the face that we know and love. Number 8. Almost burned to death. In the Flashpoint universe, Barry doesn't have his superpowers, so he works together with Thomas Wayne, that reality's version of Batman, to come up with a scheme to try to get his powers back, so that he can run back in time and fix the timeline. So the plan is simple: recreate the events that originally gave him his powers, by covering himself in chemicals and then getting struck by lightning. Thomas, for good reason, has a lot of concerns, But Barry races ahead with the plan, and it doesn't go well. He is struck by lightning, but instead of receiving powers, he almost roasts to death, getting third-degree burns all over his body. Thomas bandages up what's left of Barry's skin while he screams in agony, and we see Barry lying on a gurney, soaked in blood and covered head to toe in bandages. It is a bit of a gruesome scene and definitely inspires some sympathy for the Flash. Number 7. Captured and tortured. In Crisis on Infinite Earths, a lot of things got really cranked up. Many heroes were pushed to their limits, and good old Barry is no exception. The Flash gets captured by the Anti-Monitor, and then mentally tortured by the evil Psycho Pirate, who has the ability to manipulate emotions. Barry endures this for weeks, with Psycho Pirate forcing him to relive his worst memories and emotions over and over again. We see poor Barry cowering in the dark, terrified for his life, forced to watch as his fellow Justice League member Red Tornado is killed right before his eyes. When he finally breaks free, he's been through so much emotional turmoil, he goes buck wild with rage and beats on Psycho Pirate until he begs for mercy. Definitely a low point for the Flash. Number 6. His wife Iris West was killed by Zoom. Since the first appearance of Barry Allen in 1956, he's been paired up with Iris West, another DC power couple like Lois and Clark. They've been married and had all kinds of relationship drama. While she's attending a costume party dressed as Batgirl, Zoom waits for her in the kitchen, and when she comes to get a drink, he kills her. Using his speed powers to vibrate his hand at turbo speed, he passes his hand through her skull and does fatal damage to the molecules inside her brain. This causes instantaneous death, and the tragedy of it all is devastating for Barry. Later in the story, his true love is brought back to him through some time travel stuff and reincarnation, but it's still a seriously heart-wrenching moment for the Flash. Number 5. He killed a man. After the death of his first wife, Barry eventually met and fell in love with Fiona Webb, and the two dated on and off. She worked for a senator named Creed Phillips on his election campaign. When Creed is revealed to secretly be the villain Eradicator and later dies, Fiona and Barry realize through the whole ordeal that they really do love each other and decide that they're going to get married. On the day of the wedding, the Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom, shows up again and attacks Barry. The two race across the city fighting each other, but when Zoom switches his focus to Barry's fiancée, Flash goes into a rage and he runs up and grabs him by the neck from behind. Unfortunately, the sheer force of this alone snaps the villain's neck and kills him, and Barry is racked with guilt over having killed someone. The city even has him stand trial, and his longtime friend Wally testifies against him, saying Flash should have done more to stop Zoom without killing him. It's a real low point for Barry, and he's forced to flee to another time period. Number 4. His nephew Wally died. If suffering all this physical and emotional pain wasn't bad enough, Barry has also seen the death of his beloved nephew Wally West. Wally and his aunt are driving, racing to stop Iris's brother from killing the Flash. They end up getting in a car crash on the way, and not wearing seatbelts, the results of the crash are pretty brutal. Iris is left permanently paralyzed, and Wally is thrown from the vehicle. Barry arrives to see Wally's lifeless body on the road, and Iris being loaded into an ambulance. Flash blames himself for not being able to stop the accident, and the death of Wally sends him into a dark period of sadness and guilt.
Number 4. Death of Jason Todd. The loss of Jason Todd hit Batman hard. And who is to blame? Those who voted for him to be killed. It's your fault. Well, actually, it might not be your fault. You might have not been alive, or you may have not voted. Anyways, some people don't even believe the vote was real still, that it's all a conspiracy. And yet, I digress. Why this was so hard for Batman was because Jason Todd, of course, was both his ward and his Robin. Though the two had a falling out previously, Batman ended up teaming up with Todd once more to help him find his birth mother. Although they found her, it was revealed that she was involved in a plot with the Joker, which ended up resulting in both her and Jason's death. Batman would never forgive himself for what happened to Jason, and when Jason returned from death, it was made evident that Jason likely wouldn't ever be able to fully forgive Batman either. He's like, I died because of you, because you didn't save me. Which, you didn't save him, so I guess sort of fair. Number 3. Death of his parents. Obviously, one of the worst things to happen to Bruce Wayne happened early in his life and would have to be the death of his parents. Without them dying, he wouldn't be the man he is today, for better or for worse. It's actually an interesting thing to imagine a world where Bruce gets to keep his parents and grows up normally. Would he still grow up normally? I I wonder. The death of his parents tormented young Bruce so much that it, along with the freak encounter with the bat, inspired him to become the masked vigilante known as Batman. So in a way, it's this trauma that has led to so much of the other awful experiences that Batman has suffered through, countless physical injuries, as well as mental and emotional turmoil. Not only that, but the loss of his parents has been a trauma that Batman has never healed from and has carried throughout his entire life. Number 2. Death of Alfred. Although his parents' death changed him forever, he was left with at least one father figure to help him carry on, the faithful family butler, Alfred Pennyworth. Alfred served Master Bruce, but also took care of him and raised him, acting as a father to him. Alfred has come in harm's way a few times in the comics, but one of the most devastating blows that both he and Master Bruce had to suffer came when Bane full-on killed Alfred, snapping his neck. Bane was working to break Bruce fully, and this was just another part of his master plan. He even was part of Catwoman kinda leaving him at the altar, which is another terrible thing that happened here. Bane had taken Alfred hostage and told the Bat family to stay away or else. Damian, however, didn't listen, believing he could take Bane down himself. When Damian failed, Bane killed Alfred, and in so doing, broke Bruce's heart. Number 1. Tortured and killed on repeat. When Joker received 99.9% of Mr. Mixia's Pitilix power, he used it to wreak all kinds of havoc. One of the things he used these new epic reality warping powers for was to torment Batman forever on repeat. Daily, Emperor Joker would torture and kill Batman, although in the end Batman was the key to Joker's defeat, being Joker's one true weakness, since his identity was so closely tied to Batman's. However, Batman was left so traumatized by these events that he became a broken man, a shadow of his former self, unable to operate as a hero. Superman actually had to steal the memories of this experience away in order to return Batman to himself once more so he could resume being a hero and just, not being a complete mess. Wow, yes, so Batman has lost all of that and more over the years, though he often has a tendency to gain back those things he's lost and heal from his past traumas. There are some losses and scars that remain with him to this day, shaping him into the hero and the man he has become.
Number 3. Maxima. Maxima. You had the potential. You see, Maxima had a power set that put her on par with the likes of Superman. She was also an alien from the planet Almerac. The problem with Maxima doesn't come from her powers or anything like that. No, see, the problem with Maxima is that her planet's population is dwindling, and her number one goal is to find a man to do the repopulating with. Seeing Superman as the perfect mate, she goes after him only to be turned down, leading her to join a Superman revenge-based team and then join the Justice League to try and seduce him. Surprisingly, it didn't work, and she would turn her sights on Captain Atom and then Amazing Man. And then she bit the dust thanks to Brainiac. She could have been someone. She could have been a contender.
And ultimately, into number 2, Batman. Yeah, that's right, I'm calling out your glorious Batman, so pipe down for a second, okay? It's my turn. While being one of the founding members of the League, Batman has had some serious trust issues that bring down the team. Mostly I'm talking about his whole various plans to bring down the members if they end up going rogue thing. An understandable concept in theory, but I mean it doesn't really go over well considering how Ra's al Ghul steals the plans and then puts them into action. While yes, he isn't as bad as some of the other characters on this list in their contexts, in this context, he really does screw up. I mean, if they weren't the protagonists and their deaths wouldn't result in the loss of millions of dollars for DC, they would not have been able to stop Ra's from wiping out every League member and just taking the whole League off the board. Let's be realistic here, okay? Batman may be good at what he does, but he's not a good teammate. Batman is amazing at whatever he's doing at the time, unless that thing is being on a team, in which case he kinda sucks. And it's, you know what, he's one of the worst Justice League members because of this. Get mad all you want. Deep down, you know I'm right.
Number 1. Mistech. More like mistake. Look guys, I know it was a bad joke, okay? Everyone here told me it was a bad joke. I'm trying to do better. I will do better, okay? I'm sorry. Everyone loves a comeback story. When Mistech, a woman named Seong Barclay, first came on the scene, she was a pretty low-tiered villain. She wore the armor of her late father, which gave her a masculine-looking physique while in the suit, and she had energy-projecting abilities. Eventually, Martian Manhunter recruited Mistech for his Justice League task force, which, I mean, how could she say no? Oh, Maybe if she took into account her claustrophobia. Superheroing doesn't necessarily bring you into confined spaces, that's fair. But when there is a possibility of being put into a spacecraft and going off into space, that's when things get a little problematic. And it's what they did. When the Justice League Task Force had to go into space and Miss Tech panicked. She shot a hole in the craft and got sucked out into space, ending her short-lived membership on the Justice League Task Force. I almost feel bad for her. Not really, almost.
Number 3, parents dead. Things weren't always this way. Maybe it was the success of Superman or Batman stories, but either way, when DC rewrote the Flash's backstory in Rebirth, they gave him the old cliche tragic past. In this new version of his history, his mother Nora is brutally murdered when he's a child. Not only that, his father is wrongfully sent to prison for the crime. And if that wasn't bad enough, his father dies in prison before he can be proved innocent, and the Flash goes through it all alone. It's only later in life that he learns it was the Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom, that murdered Nora and framed his father Henry for the crime to ruin Barry's life. Ironically, the plan backfires, and these events lead to Barry becoming a forensic scientist for the police, and then later becoming the hero known as the Flash. Number 2, returns to the past and allows his mother's death. Alright, we've seen a lot of stuff. How could it possibly be worse? Well, one time, Barry woke up in an alternate reality where his mother is still alive. In the Flashpoint universe, his mother is alive and his father was never framed for murder. It sounds great and Barry gets a nice touching reunion, but there's actually a bunch of other stuff in this universe that's different too. Like Bruce Wayne was killed instead of his parents. On top of that, in this universe, Wonder Woman and Aquaman have basically caused a huge war in Europe, causing massive destruction and devastation. Barry decides he needs to reset the timeline, even though it means losing his mother again. Barry does do the heroic thing in the end, and sacrifices his own happiness to put everything back to normal. Number 1, sacrificed himself to save the multiverse. In the crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Barry makes the ultimate sacrifice, his own life. The Anti-Monitor has constructed a giant antimatter cannon to destroy the various Earths, and Barry does what he has to do to stop it. He runs against the antimatter to destroy the weapon, running so fast he's going back through time, reliving his memories as his body disintegrates. The pain becomes so intense at one point that he cries out for help with nobody to hear him. He reminds himself that there is always hope, and he keeps pushing even as his body is breaking down completely. He leaves us with a final message that we must save the world, and Barry Allen dies a hero. This version of him anyways.